It was really a great sort of ruminative and meditative piece, based on Juan, who was a fascinating character. He used both an embalmer, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and I believe also washed cars. And I think it sort of showed what he had to do to sort of survive and to live. And he has to be sort of at the edges of society and do things that people try to ignore and not want to deal with. And I think Juan sort of embraced those dynamics and really has a very sort of high-minded and spiritual approach to life and death, because of his perspective. And I thought the piece did a really great job of having a grounded and relatable aesthetic. The sequences with him talking were always very fascinating to see his point of view on his lifestyle, life in general. And I thought that Juan was just an incredibly dynamic character, even though he's someone that you would assume is living on the edge of society. I thought the piece did a really great job of sort of couching him and showing why he's so fascinating and so interesting, and how there's a lot of poetic and profound things that somebody that is in that world has to say given their perspective. So I thought it was very well done, incredibly well produced. It looked very good and super realistic, and I thought that really felt created a grounded and intimate dynamic that allowed the piece to sort of have an emotional impact, despite the dark or heavy themes. So it was very well done.
I found it really fascinating the way that it's shot, especially in the very beginning. I was like, is this a dog? Just because of how still the camera is and the lighting, and the use of light, and how still and effective Juan is the storyteller. He's an excellent storyteller. And so I think that making him like the narrator of his own story and allowing us to hear his like inner thoughts throughout his daily life was really impactful and the right way to go. But yeah, there's some real dramatic moments that feel almost scripted. They're so beautifully captured. I think that was really smart to start off with Juan and his dog, really beautifully captured when they're playing together in the bed and the dog sleeping. A very save the cat moment that felt really sincere and really does endear you to Juan for the rest of the short. And there's just some really great shots of them together. I love when he's in the doctor's office in the parking lot and the car pulls away and you see the dog behind the car. Like they are separate, they are attached at the hip. I think it was really beautifully captured. And again, like Juan's a really amazing storyteller. Listening to him talk about his relationship with his daughters and his wife or his partner, and that moment where he's getting a little choked up, like it's just there's every part of it is so emotional, and so intentional. And I think that the filmmakers captured that in a way that makes this doc very unique.
This is a quiet, intriguing short. We meet a fellow named Juan who spends his time embalming dead bodies and washing cars to stay afloat. Given his life choices, he seems estranged from his family. The close up footage of his day to day life is fascinating, especially his work on a corpse to get it ready for a funeral. I enjoyed the candid interviews with Juan. His views on life and death were quite poetic and thoughtful. I liked the nighttime shots, which really captured the energy of the place. The creators of this project should be commended for finding such an interesting person to film.
It was both documentarian and very cinematic. It was matter of fact, but also very poetic. The way Juan tells his story with such passion, it gives it this sort of romanticized quality, but it's also very morbid too. Really just had me engaged and leaning in the whole time. I just thought everything about his persona was just really interesting. Definitely a fascinating individual. So great subject matter, but then also on the technical level, they just did a great job at framing the shots, at telling the story, at piecing it all together in a way that was interesting and also really followed an arc. It was really well done.
Moving documentary, we see this man that's been taking care of the dead for the past years, for basically for all his life, and he's been the last connection between a dead person and what's going to happen next, the afterlife. And now that he's getting old, he's thinking, what's going to happen to him? Who's going to take care of him when his moment will come? I think this the moment. The documentary was quite touching, and the direction really managed to picture a perfect look to the inside thoughts, internal thoughts of this man. There was a great cinematography, and also I like the difference between the dark scenes where there is basically no lights, and the scenes where there's more lighting, and when Juan is talking or working. I think this also gave that feeling that Juan basically gave the audience the chance to prove the same feelings Juan is feeling.
Casually mentions that he's murdered 5 people, injured like so many people, and he's fascinating just listening to him talk about his work. I really enjoyed how he brought this spiritual aspect to his work as a mortician, how he talks to the corpses, how he wants to be buried standing up. It was very interesting to see his point of view and how he thinks about life and death, as someone who works with corpses every day. To see him describe death as his happiness was very interesting. I just his entire life, to me, how he washes corpses and then he goes and washes cars, and how death is just part of life for him. I think this film captures that very well, and he captures his character really well, and all different sides of him are seen here, and I think the emotionally charged moments are handled very well.
They give us an unfiltered access to Juan de Dios Lopez, Juancho's trade and talent with the funeral services. They give us some raw scenes from real corpses that he has processed, so they can rest in peace in their final burial site. The wisdom in his words and his approach to life and death, even with a strange family and being lonely, it has a lot of learning there to unpack. The solitude and strength in his words are just very inspiring. He's finding solace in praying to God to be buried standing up. He's worried about who's doing that for him because no one's there to support him from his family members or people that are carrying these wishes forward. He is also very much in love with his dog Pinina, and it was just so emotional.